We're officially 100 days out from the start of the SEC college football season, and my excitement level is higher than a giraffe on Mount Kilimanjaro. Seriously, the fact that we're pushing double-digit days means that soon we will be at SEC Media Days. No, literally, we will be at SEC Media Days. And then we get the college football game, which means that I won't be on this app for like 4 days. And then we'll actually have the game that we love and cherish back on our television screens. I have a lot of thoughts, like a million thoughts. But because we are at the 100-day marker, I thought I'd give you my top 100 thoughts surrounding the SEC going into 2024. So what's going on, SEC Unfiltered? It's Cole Thompson here. Make sure that you like the video, hit the comment section down below. What are your top thoughts going into the 2024 season? And of course, hit subscribe because we're talking college football every single day leading up to week 1 and well throughout the 2024 season. Download the podcast version of the show. Follow us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, at SEC Unfiltered. And for the #1 content surrounding your favorite school, your favorite program, your favorite conference, make sure you visit secunfiltered.com. This episode of SEC Unfiltered is brought to you by RHOBACK. Use the promo code SECU for 20% off all joggers, shorts, hoodies, pants, and so much more with your first purchase. SECU promo code at RHOBACK.com. We have a lot to get through, so I'm not going to go ahead and waste a lot of time. Let's get into this. #1, who is the breakout team for 2024? Last season, it was Missouri. They went 11-2. They absolutely dismantled teams en route to winning the Cotton Bowl. Who is it in 2024? Is it Kentucky? Is it Auburn? Is it Texas A&M? Is it Florida? Could Florida actually be that team? They know it's going to happen. Somebody's going to come out on top. I do believe that we will see a new era of college football where somebody is going to take the mantle and find their way into the conversation of a college football berth. #2, is Missouri getting too much hype after going 11-2 last year? Offensively, no, that won't be a problem. You bring back Brady Cook, you bring back Luther Burden, you bring back Theo Weiss. You felt good about the offensive additions you brought in for the trenches. You feel good about the running back room. The question is, do you feel good about your defense underneath Corey Batoon? You brought in some good players, Toriana Pride from Clemson being the headliner, but is that enough to go ahead and combat this schedule to where, yes, you will be a college football playoff team? #3, how long is Peyton Thorne's leash at Auburn? You upgraded the offensive personnel. You get a new play caller and Hugh Freeze actually running the show. Is that enough for Peyton Thorne, the former quarterback that threw for 3,000 yards and led Michigan State to a Peach Bowl win over Pitt? The same type of mantra that you have down on the plains. His leash, I don't think is as long as people want to make it out to be. #4, what is the proper amount of time before Alabama fans are allowed to start panicking underneath Kalen DeBoer? Like, honestly, we know that this was going to be a change of pace. Bama fans, I'm one of you. So let's go ahead and temper our expectations. Nobody is saying that you can't be a college football playoff team. But if you look a little rusty in week 2 or week 3 against Wisconsin, don't go ahead and try firing up the pitchforks. If you go 10-2, go ahead and just keep the mantle back at home. You don't need to go ahead and get the flames out. We can go ahead and be a little bit patient with him. You got a great coach replacement for the greatest to ever do it. And in that case scenario, it's very hard to argue that you at least need to give him some time. #5, who looks rough in week 1? Like, honestly, there's going to be one team that absolutely comes out the gate with a dud. Who is it? Is it Georgia with new offensive personnel? Is it Alabama because of the new defensive formation? Is it going to be Mississippi State? Is it going to be Texas A&M against Notre Dame? Somebody is going to come out looking very sluggish. Who is going to be that team? #6, is a close call against Clemson a concern for Georgia, or more so just a sense that Clemson's actually pretty good? I think there's a middle ground. In my opinion, actually, it leans more so that Clemson might be trending upward underneath Dabo Swinney, which feels weird because if they didn't use the transfer portal, they were one of only 4 schools that didn't do it, and their roster is really not that good. But I feel more confident that maybe Dabo is finding a little bit of a hitch with Kate Klubnik, with the new offense. With Garrett Riley going into year 2. That feels a little bit more confident than I would say Georgia taking a step back. Georgia still is Georgia. We all know that. #7, who is the first coach that Lane Kiffin will call out on Twitter? Def, Taxes, Lane Troll, and somebody on Twitter. You know it's going to happen. We all believe it's going to happen. So who is it? Is it going to be a non-conference opponent? Is it going to be maybe Kirby Smart? Is it going to be potentially Texas and Steve Sarkisian when they lose a game? Who is it going to be? Because we know it's going to happen. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. #8, who will have the longest and shortest speech at SEC Media Days. Like Mike Leach one time, I think had 9 words in his opening press conference, and Jimbo Fisher, I think, went for like 10 minutes. You got to have a middle ground. Like 2 minutes is fine. That's dandy. That's all you need for the SEC Media Days, especially down in Big D. My prediction right now, shortest, Eli Drinkowitz, longest, Brent Venables. I remember covering him when he was at Big 12 Media Days. He went on rants. He went on tyrants. I could absolutely see the exact same thing in Dallas from the Norman, Oklahoma guy. Number 9, will Vandy lose to Georgia State? Like, what are real expectations for Vandy this year? If they go 0-12, is that enough to get Clark Lee fired? A guy that is bought into what Vanderbilt football is. And if they lose to Georgia State, people are going to be, I think, starting to file up the pitchforks. And you know why? Because Del McGee is a damn good coach. Georgia State is in a program of dismay after losing Sean Elliott. But Del McGee is going to, I think, be the reason why the Panthers turn around. What happens if it comes in year 1? It's a major concern, and it definitely is on everyone's radar. Number 10, who is wide receiver number 2 behind Luther Burden? Stop yourself. We all know that Luther Burden going into this year is the favorite to win the Biletnikoff in the SEC. We know that he is a superstar. We know he's a first-round talent. I don't really care. Who's number 2? Who's going to be the guy that competes alongside him to where there are games we are going to have this conversation? Is it Trey Harris? Is it potentially Jeremy Bernard? Is it potentially Cam Coleman down at Auburn? Somebody's got to step up and get that silver medal. Who's it going to be going into 2024? Number 11, does anyone else land someone in the transfer portal? You look at the names that still are available. Guys like Jacoby Matthews, guys like Tyler Barron, guys like Sayer Wright, the cornerback from USC, Johnny Bowens from my apologies, from Oregon. Does somebody else come on in and land one of those players in the not-so-distant future? And if so, does that up their win total from what the projected odds are on FanDuel right now? Number 12, Texas versus Michigan. I just can't get it out of my head. It feels like a really good matchup. You know, that's going to be one of the biggest environments that Texas has ever played in. And you're already going to the SEC. What happens if somehow this defensive front still is able to combat all the consistency that we saw last season when they won a national championship in Ann Arbor? Number 13, Alabama at 11 a.m. versus Wisconsin. Why? Why? Honestly, like, I get it. You want to go ahead and knock this out. Big noon Saturday. It's going to be cool to see Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt making the call. But at the same time, like, this feels like a Wisconsin team that actually could maybe go 9-3, 8-4. And they have a really good coach in Luke Fickell. And what happens if Alabama loses that game? Like if they lose an 11 o'clock kick, that's almost at the same level to some Alabama fans as Alabama losing to the Louisiana Monroe. Number 14, Kentucky 10-win season round 3. So for those of you that don't know, every 2 years, you see Kentucky go 8-4, 7-5, 5-7, whatever it is. And then year 3 underneath Mark Stoops, they get to 10 wins. 2021, they got to 10 wins. 2018, they got to 10 wins. Do they get to 10 wins this upcoming season with a new offensive coordinator, a new quarterback? What to make of this offensive consistency going into 2024? 15, does Texas A&M set the standard versus Notre Dame? College game day could have gone anywhere in the nation for week 1. They chose to go to Kyle Field. They chose to go take on the Golden Domers. They brought in 2 of the biggest hated fan bases in all of college football and put them on the main stage. Will Texas A&M live up to the standard of setting the tone in the SEC for that matchup on national television? Number 16, when does Jackson Arnold arrive for this offense at Oklahoma? Like, is it going to come against Tennessee? Are we going to see it against Tulane? Are we going to see it at Red River? Is that the moment where he finally breaks out? Because there's a reason why Dylan Gabriel transferred. It wasn't because he thought, oh, I'm not going to be able to win the starting job in the SEC. No, it's because Jackson Arnold was really damn good. Like, really damn good. And now he's got 3 exceptional weapons in Andrew Anthony, in Deion Burks, who you already see the connection with, Nick Anderson. Is there going to be a game to where we just see him throw for like 425 yards and go, shit. All right, there we go. That's why he ends up winning the starting job. 17, is NC State versus Tennessee the most influential matchup in week 2? There's some damn good games in week 2. You got South Carolina versus Kentucky. You have Texas versus Michigan. But to me, the one game that is the most important non-conference matchup between anybody in college football this year, it's got to be NC State versus Tennessee, because both these teams, I feel like, are good enough to compete not for a conference title, but certainly be in the hunt for a college football playoff berth. And this one game may be the reason why they are sitting at 14 or 13 rather than at 11 or 12 when the official rankings come out in early December. Number 18. Who has the highlight quote from SEC Media Days? Somebody's going to say something nonsensical. Somebody's going to go ahead and call out a player, call out a coach, call out a program, and that's going to get aggregated like clockwork. It happens every single year. My money right now, somebody calls out Texas. Like just immediately they say, welcome to the party. You are not welcome here. Number 20, let me rephrase that. Number 19, who is the first major injury that derails a season? Somebody's going to get injured. Hate to break it to you, folks. A season's going to be diminished because of a massive injury that has already been well planned by the college football gods months in advance. Who is it? Is it going to happen at Georgia? Is it going to happen at Alabama? Is it going to happen at Texas? Is it going to happen at Ole Miss? Somebody is going to lose a key player, and it's going to be a reason why they end up having a 10-2 thought in their mind, and in reality, they probably go 7-5 or 8-4. Now, number 20. Can South Carolina's offensive line protect Lenore Sellers? Plain and simple. You knew that last season, the reason why you went 5-7 was not because of your defense. It was not because of your offensive production in terms of Xavier Legette and Spencer Rattler. It's because your offensive line was a turnstile. Like literally you had a better shot of having just plain blocks sitting there than what you had last season. Who steps up? Can anybody on this offensive line protect Lenore Sellers? It's great that he's mobile, but he still needs to be able to have time to throw the football down the field to connect with wide receivers for 20-plus yard gains. Number 21. Who is the top transfer in the portal this upcoming offseason? Somebody is going to break out. Somebody's going to be a name that we talk about as potentially a first-round talent, as potentially an all-SEC player. I got two early odds right now. Number 1, Nick Scorton at Texas A&M. Guy won Defensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten last year. Don't think for 1 second that once he starts learning how to play with his hand in the dirt, he won't be terrorizing quarterbacks in the SEC. And then CJ Daniels at LSU. Look, this offense is going to be very potent. It's going to be very vertical. And Daniels last season proved he can be a number 1 receiver regardless of who his quarterback is. At Liberty, he was the flaming target. And I do believe he will be exactly that down in Baton Rouge. Number 22. Sorry about that. Which contender loses an out-of-conference game? And what I mean by that is who's going to be a legit thought of 10-2, 11-1, finding their way to Atlanta. Who's going to be the one that ends up dropping a game that's really important? To me, I think it's probably Tennessee against NC State. I think maybe, just maybe, it could end up being Texas against Michigan. Maybe it's Alabama versus Wisconsin. But somebody is going to drop a game that's a non-conference matchup that eventually does derail their season and puts a little bit of a slight against them when it comes to the college football playoff rankings. Number 23. Is LSU's defense ready for USC's offense? That's another game that we got to talk about. LSU's offense is going to be skyrocket on fire when they enter Las Vegas. You can bet on black that they are going to double down and get a lot of points scored by Garrett Nussmeier. Is their defense ready to handle Miller Moss? Is it ready to handle Lincoln Riley? Is it ready to handle Zachariah Branch? You got to realize, as much as we want to crap on USC for the last 2 years, what their defense looked like, we can do the exact same thing with LSU because they would have been a team that would have gone to the college football playoff if they had a top 50 unit. So is this defense now led by Blake Baker ready to be prepared to take on the likes of what Miller Moss and what Lincoln Riley's offense can do? Number 24, will Lenore Sellers get an NIL deal for rec specs? And honestly, is this going to become the new trend in college football throughout the Southeastern Conference? Like, do you remember like when we were growing up and Tim Tebow put the Bible verses on his eye black? And like every single player started doing the exact same thing. Rec specs, they're really cool. He pulls them off. Are we going to see more of that in high school level football? Are we going to see more of that in Pop Warner football? I would love to see it. And also, how much is he going to get paid by rec specs? Can I get an NIL deal from rec specs? Not the point. Number 25. Wow, we're only a quarter of the way done. What's the feel around Nico Iamaleava after the Oklahoma game? He's going to be playing against NC State. Def, Texas, NC State having a really good defense. After that, you're going to play Oklahoma. They're going to have a great defense. And I'm not talking about a great defense for what is for Big 12. I'm talking about just a great defense in general. What's the persona around that defense going into 2024? And how do fans feel about Nico Iamaleava if he throws 2 interceptions? And in that game, it becomes the difference maker of you already having 2 losses and starting off the season 2-2. Number 26. When is Arch Manning going to take the field for the first time in the SEC? No, I'm not talking about matchups like against UTSA. I'm not talking about matchups against Louisiana Monroe or Colorado State. I'm talking about like actual SEC play. Is there going to be a game that Texas just blows somebody out of the water, and then in the fourth quarter, we see Arch Manning arise from the ashes, and all the Texas fans watch him throw a 60-yard bomb downfield to Jonte Cook, and they say, well, Quinn Ewers can't do that. We need him as our starting quarterback. It's going to happen. We know it is. What to make of it moving forward. Same thing goes at number 26. What about Jaden Rashada? You don't go to Georgia to just sit. You go to Georgia to compete for the future role as QB1. And I think the big thing is that we're talking about Gunnar Stockton. We're talking about Rashada, two high-profile quarterbacks. When does he see the field in the SEC games? Is it against a lesser-tier opponent? Does Carson Beck get injured and they go to him immediately? And what does he look like now going from Arizona State back to the SEC? More on him actually in a little bit. Number 28 is South Carolina versus Kentucky week 2 a sleeper game? In my opinion, yes. These are two teams that I think honestly could find their way to 9-3, could find their way to 10-2. I really like South Carolina's defense. I love what you added in offensively for Kentucky. This could be a game that doesn't carry a lot of weight week 2, but like by week 8, week 9, when you start talking about South Carolina being ranked at 24, Kentucky being ranked at 18, maybe that's a big reason why. 29. What does Bobby Petrino's offense look like with Taylon Green at Arkansas? So we've known one thing about Bobby Petrino. He gets quarterbacks like I get to breathe air. It just is second nature for him. He's really good at developing. It doesn't matter the type of player that you have. They know that they're going to be properly equipped to work with Bobby Petrino. So what does Taylon Green, a 6'6" mobile quarterback that starred at Boise State, look like down in Fayetteville? And is Bobby Petrino's offense going to be enough to keep a guy like Sam Pittman hired for another season? Number 30, who takes over as the new number 1 weapon for Georgia's offense? They added in a ton of players this offseason. You bring over Ben Urasek from Stanford, Colby Young from Miami, London Humphreys from Vanderbilt. Do you feel like one of them takes the jump? Do you feel like maybe Dominic Lovett is ready to take over as the new number 1? He seemed the most confident going out of the spring game. So is he ready to go ahead and now be the new X factor like Lyle McConkey and both Brock Bowers were before this? 31. Will Cam Coleman be the first wide receiver since Y2K at Auburn to reach 1,000 yards? Yeah, we have seen literally the entire world change overnight. This used to have a little thing attached to it the last time that Auburn had a wide receiver go for over 3 numbers in his stat line for a season. Is Cam Coleman that dude? I personally believe that he can be that special of a talent. Will he be in year 1 with Peyton Thorne as a starting quarterback? 32. What will be the average attendance at First Bank Stadium this year? Like, they're still going through renovations. They said they opened up the student section. Are students really going to go to Nashville and actually watch Vanderbilt football when they don't know if they're going to get blown out by 400 points or 40 points, 10 points? Or is any game really going to be that close for Vanderbilt this year? I'm not sure, but I really want to know what the attendance numbers look like for First Bank Stadium. Number 33, my apologies. Who will have the first viral moment and why? Yeah, there's going to be a viral moment in college football this year. Somebody's going to have a pick 6. Somebody's going to have a game-winning touchdown. Who's it going to be? What school is it going to be at? Who's going to be the opponent? And will it be against you, not for you? Because viral moments also can be a negative as much as they are a positive. Number 34, who is the incoming freshman that makes the biggest impact? There's a lot of good ones out there. I'm going to tell you right now, my favorite that I am excited to see going into the season is Josiah Thompson. Former number 2 overall offensive tackle prospect at South Carolina. He's already secured a spot on the starting offensive line. I think he's going to be able to really build off of what he did in the spring game. I'm excited to see what South Carolina does this season. I'm a lot higher on them than most people. I think the main reason why is because of if you get a 4-star talent like Josiah Thompson, you're going to be able to do a lot of business with that. Number 35, speaking of freshmen, what happens if Colin Simmons lives up to the hype at Texas? They have not had a 10-plus sack guy since Jackson Jeffcoat. Go remember that name for a little while, Texas fans. Yeah, it's been a hot minute. And you bring over Trey Moore, and you still have Ethan Burke. And what if you just have Colin Simmons come out there and immediately just win on 3rd down? Like, he has the same type of impact that Harold Perkins had when he was a freshman, and he does one thing really, really good, and then immediately he terrorizes everybody else. Number 36. What does Texas A&M's offense look like underneath Colin Klein? So they could have ran the wishbone this past season in Manhattan with what's coming on in. Dylan Edwards, DJ Giddens, Avery Johnson. That's not going to be the case down in College Station. You have Connor Wegman as your starting quarterback. You have a couple of running backs that you feel high on, but they're not proven the exact same way the other two were. What does this offense look like, and how quickly does it adapt to the personnel that Colin Klein is going to be working with? Number 37, who is RB1 for Ole Miss? Like, they have every single player under the sun that's going to come on in and get at least one rep. Who is going to win the job? Is it going to be just Rashad Amos, who came on over from Miami of Ohio? Is it going to be Henry Parrish, who already has an understanding of this offense? Is it going to be Ulysses Bentley, who didn't play this upcoming season, the spring, because he was dealing with an injury? He's been a really good complimentary back. Can he be the number one back? And also, does it even really matter when you have that much personnel? Number 38, is Tulane a matchup to watch for against Oklahoma in week 3? Tulane has the best group of 5 coach in all of college football in John Summerall. They brought over basically everyone from that defense that ranked top 20 in the Sun Belt. Is that going to be a matchup where Jackson Arnold has a little bit of struggles, has a little bit of concerns, and maybe it goes down to the wire? The Green Wave are going to be a team that fights for a spot in the college football playoff. You'd be out of your mind if you disagree with that. So I think that you got to go ahead and look at what this team could be. They're marching into Norman, Oklahoma. Oklahoma's also going to be preparing for Tennessee the week before. That might be a trap game of all trap games. Number 39, how does Blake Shapen look for the offense for Mississippi State in year 1 underneath Jeff Lebby? He played in a similar style underneath Jeff Grimes when he was at Baylor. You saw the success rate in 2021. Can you get back to that, like, at all? Is there any way that you can get back to that level in 2024? Because if so, maybe you're actually talking about a 5-7, 6-6 season. 6-6 for Jeff Lebby in year 1 is actually a huge win, I think, down in Starkville. Number 40, does Alabama versus LSU still have that same flair without Nick Saban? Because you got to remember, part of the reason why this game had so much animosity was because Saban coached at both LSU and Alabama, and he won national titles. And there's a couple of people down in Baton Rouge still to this day that believe they would have been Alabama 2.0 if Saban never left for Miami. So does that rivalry still carry weight when you don't have Les Miles, when you don't have Nick Saban, and now you're saying Brian Kelly versus Kalen DeBoer, 2 guys that grew up not in the South and 2 guys that don't have any really regencies compared to this? Is it still going to be the exact same flair? It's going to be in Tiger Stadium. It's going to be a night game. To me, absolutely it is. Number 41, who is a better Big 12 rival, Texas A&M or Mizzou and Oklahoma? You know what's funny? Texas A&M and Texas is probably going to be a much more hostile environment on game day. But if you look on Twitter right now, just literally go throughout Twitter, you're talking about Oklahoma fans losing their freaking minds at Mizzou fans. They are ready to go to war today. They would love to have this game played right here and right now. So if that's possible, I think you'd be out of your freaking mind not to say that Oklahoma versus Missouri is going to have just as much animosity as Texas versus Texas A&M. Maybe if the game was played on Thanksgiving, we'd actually lean a little bit more Texas versus Texas A&M. I digress. I'm not going to go into that much of a battle. 42, is Keandre Lambert-Smith the piece needed for Auburn's offense? We know that they already had a 1,000-yard receiver in the works when they were at Michigan State for Peyton Thorne. We know that there's going to be a potential 1,000-yard receiver in Cam Coleman. They also had a really good running back in Kenneth Walker. They have a really good running back in Jarquez Hunter. There was a really good complimentary receiver at Michigan State by the name of Jalen Naylor. Is that going to be the same guy that Keandre Lambert-Smith can be? And can you trust him as across the middle of the field to open up the offense, thus allowing Peyton Thorne to have much more consistency when it comes to passing attack? If so, watch out for Auburn. I'm telling you, they are a coin flip team almost every single week. I will be very far-fetched to believe that they won't be in every single matchup. Number 43, what to think of Tennessee's offensive line? This is a very good unit overall. You look at where Tennessee ranks. They're going to be one of, I think, the best in college football. They bring back 3 starters. They brought over one of my favorite transfers in Lance Hurd, former 5-star out of LSU. Cooper Mays, Javante Spraggins, and John Campbell Jr., who's flipping from left tackle to right tackle, might end up being a big blessing. If they can protect Nico Iamaleava, what are we talking about? The weaponry, the consistency. If this defense can actually play in the secondary, maybe Tennessee actually goes on a run to Atlanta. Number 44 is Quinn Ewers ready for the SEC. You just saw an article released by The Athletic talking about what Big 12 coaches think of Quinn Ewers. Good quarterback, solid for the Big 12. Is he solid for the SEC? Now, you don't have a weapon like Xavier Worthy. You don't have Adonai Mitchell. You don't have Jatavion Sanders. How does this new offense mesh with number 3 as the new number 1 passer in the SEC? A lot of high hopes for him down in Austin. A lot of high hopes for him to win the Heisman Trophy. I personally think he's going to be a good quarterback. Not sure he's going to be a great one going into 2024. 45 is Eli Drinkwitz still the best dressed at SEC Media Days? Guy was swagged out in 2023. Guy was balling. Like he had the Jordans, he had the fresh fit, he had a clean jacket. He looked good. Is anybody going to be able to compete with him? Like, could you see Kalen DeBoer come on in and actually look fresh? Could Shane Beamer come on in and push him? Could Mike Elko actually be like the best dressed and we just don't know about it? Like somebody has got to compete with Eli Drinkwitz because the man is starting to get a little bit too big for his britches. We need to humble him just a little bit. Number 48. What is the most underrated matchup in the first half of the season? There's going to be somebody, my apologies, this is number 46. There's going to be somebody that I think is going to be a really good game between these two. For me personally, it's Auburn versus Arkansas. I think that Auburn will be trending upward. They're going to be trusting their freshmen to really carry the tote this season. And I think Arkansas, you're going to find out exactly who they are in this game. If they hold their own against Auburn, you feel a lot more confident in the direction that Sam Pittman's going into a crucial year. But if not, this may be the writing on the wall that change is inevitable in Fayetteville. Now let's actually go to number 46. Will Ryan Williams follow the other Alabama greats? This is a 5-star plus wide receiver. He is working with Kelvin Shepard. He is going to be getting taught by the guy that just turned Jalen Polk and Rome Odunze into top 35 picks. Yeah, I'm going to be really excited to see what he does. And we know the history of Alabama wide receivers from Amari Cooper to Calvin Ridley to Jerry Jeudy to Henry Ruggs to Devonta Smith. Is Ryan Williams going to be right in that conversation alongside them? And if so, is Jalen Milroe going to have 2 elite weapons along with a good running back tandem and headlined by Justice Haynes to where you really don't feel like you're missing a beat down in Tuscaloosa? Number 47, my apologies, number 48, is Josiah Thompson ready for the SEC? So I already said that he is my favorite freshman going into this upcoming season. If he can be a left tackle of the future, him and Lenore Sellers, I think, could be wonders in the SEC going into 2025. And maybe that's enough to give you confidence that Shane Beamer has turned this ship in the right direction. Columbia could be cock-a-doodle-doodling for a huge change, but I personally think that they need to just hold out hope a little bit longer before you go ahead and pull the plug. Number 49, can Florida's offense be more dynamic with Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike, and Trey Wilson for Graham Mertz? So to me personally, Graham Mertz is going to be a Heisman sleeper. The fact that we aren't talking more about what he did last season, he got the team to 5-2, and it wasn't his fault that the offensive line was in shambles and the defensive line couldn't save a block to get in the backfield. You feel a lot better about what you bring in with DK. You feel a lot better with what you bring in with Badger. You know that Trey Wilson is about ready to take flight and go be a superstar. Add all that together, it's a recipe for chaos and disaster down in Gainesville for 2024. Disaster meaning that they can score a lot of points, not disaster like, you spending $13 million on NIL funds. Sorry, Billy Napier. Number 50, will Jalen Milroe improve his intermediate game under Kalen DeBoer? We know he's got the deep ball. We know he can do the swing passes. Can he work the middle of the field? The one thing that I try to translate whenever it comes to football and baseball is compare the two together. You hit a lot of homers. You can hit a lot of singles. Can you hit a double and a triple? Can you be consistent across the middle of the field? You know he's got the arm like Uncle Rico. You know he can go ahead and throw it across the middle. Can he get those 18-yard passes? Can he get those 12-yard passes? Can he build like Michael Penix? And if so, what type of offense are you going to see? I still think it's going to be a very run-oriented system because what you have in the backfield. But if Jalen Milroe can add that second element, especially across that intermediate part, good luck stopping Alabama. They're not going to be slowing down. And we're only halfway done. Great. Who is RB1 in the SEC? My favorite pick right now is Justice Haynes. We knew what he was coming out of high school. I think that with this offensive line, getting Parker Brailsford, bringing back Caden Proctor, you feel a lot better about where Alabama's offensive line is compared to what it was going into spring football. I do have a sleeper pick, though. Keep a close eye on Ruben Owens. Adam Cushing did a great job down at Duke developing offensive lines. And you know that when he was at El Campo, Ruben Owens was a human highlight reel. He may have played at a small high school, but he's played in big-time matchups. I think he can be that guy for Texas A&M in 2024. Raylan Wilson and C.J. Allen, the best linebacker duo in the country. So Raylan Wilson was so damn good last year that Jamon Dumas-Johnson transferred. That's just a fact. C.J. Allen was one of the best freshmen in college football last year. That's just a fact. So are they going to be a tandem that terrorizes SEC quarterbacks and running backs that makes this still one of the best defenses in college football? My personal opinion, yes. Yes, they are. Number 53, what happens after Red River? This is going to be the first time Red River is in the SEC, and usually these are games that we do see a little bit of relaxation afterwards. You usually go ahead and don't play your best version. Well, for Oklahoma, you play South Carolina. That might be a litmus test of where you stand in terms of consistent play. And if you're Texas, hi, welcome on in, Georgia. This is going to be the bloodbath of a lifetime if you aren't on your P's and Q's. This determines who is the favorite going into the second half of the season for the SEC. And yes, this does also include for Georgia as well. Number 53. Whew, that's a lot. 54, my apologies. Florida versus Texas A&M. Sneaky good matchup. Yeah, I actually believe so. Because Florida, they're going to have an offense that really is going to be able to, I think, expand across the middle of the field. Texas A&M, they're going to have a good defense. Death, Taxes, Mike Elko working in trench play. There was a reason why he was hired back in College Station to replace Jimbo Fisher. You're going to see the exact same thing in 2024. Number 55. What if LSU's offense doesn't miss a beat with new players? Yeah, I think that they're not going to, personally. The question is never going to be the offense down in Baton Rouge. What Brian Kelly has done is phenomenal. He is absolutely continuing to carry on the legacy of what we know about LSU. And yeah, I worry more so about that defensive front. Did you do enough in the transfer portal to bring in enough players to where you're not going to have the 90th ranked defense in almost every single category? Number 56, week 3 in Starkville versus Toledo. Toledo's really good. I don't think a lot of people understand just how good Toledo actually is. Yeah, you know why I say that? Because Toledo has the number 1 recruiting class every single year when it comes to the group of 5 level. They have a good coach in Jason Candle. On top of that, they feel like a team that even though they lose talent to the transfer portal every offseason, they replenish. So I am not worried about what you're going to see in terms of this Toledo Rockets offense. Will they take flight down in Starkville? 57. Will anybody watch Mizzou versus UMass at UMass? What were you thinking, SEC? SEC, I'm serious. What were you thinking when you decided to let the Minutemen host a game against an SEC opponent? Were you just thinking that Missouri was going to be going through a rebuild? Did you just think that Missouri was going to be a team that was on a trajectory for disaster? Did you just think that, you know what, I don't even want to go into this. I'm not probably watching this game. Most of you probably aren't either. Number 58, what will Florida's record be against other Florida schools? They play Miami week 1, they play UCF in week 5, and they play Florida State at the end of the season. Are they going to be 0-3? Are they going to be 3-0? Are they going to be 1-2? Are they going to be 2-1? One of those is going to happen. And also, if they are 2-1, who are the 2 wins against? And are those wins more prominent than the loss? And if they're 1-2, well, who is the win against? Are those more prominent than the loss? 59. What does Perry Thompson bring as the number 3 receiver for Auburn? Yeah, I believe Perry Thompson, who is not getting enough respect because of what he is going up against with Cam Coleman, could end up being a very sneaky wide receiver for Auburn in 2023. He's a good player out of Foley, Alabama. He's got great speed, a good catch radius. Imagine him with Keandre Lambert-Smith in the slot. You get Cam Coleman on the outside, and you have Fairweather at tight end. I'm serious. I don't know what the excuse is for Peyton Thorne at this point. Number 60. Was Gino Perez and Javaar Suggs enough for LSU's defensive line? Spoiler alert, no, it wasn't. Can somebody else step up for Bo Davis? Number 61, can Jeremy Bernard be a legit number 1 wide receiver at Alabama? So I love Jeremy Bernard. I watched him when he was at Michigan State. He was a human highlight reel in a very limited capacity. Thought he was going to be a big-time name at Washington. He wasn't, but there was a reason for that. Jalen McMillan existed. You also had Jalen Polk, and you also had Roma Dunze. So now you're going into year 3. You have already a good understanding of this offense. Can you be the dude? Plain and simple. Can you be the dude that sets the tone in Tuscaloosa year 1? You're going to the SEC. You've already played in the Big Ten. You've already played in the Pac-12. Imagine if you do go off in the SEC, though. Number 62, Monte Harrison. what to make of this story. For those of you that don't know, Monte Harrison is a former player at the MLB draft that committed to Nebraska underneath Bo Pelini. Just hear that name again. Bo Pelini in 2013. He's 28 years old. He got drafted. He didn't work out in the MLB. He played a little bit. Now he's walking on as a wide receiver at Arkansas. What if the 28-year-old goes off? Like, what if he actually has an incredible year? And also, how many years of eligibility is he actually going to have? Because if he didn't play when he was in college, he immediately went from high school to the MLB. So do we get a 32-year-old wide receiver catching fade passes from a kid that was, 4 when he was born and when he was committing to Nebraska? Going to be a really interesting game. Number 63, Kalen DeBoer's first rivalry games. What's the record? There's 3 major ones that you got to know. Number 1, it's going to be LSU. Number 2, the third Saturday in October. Number 3, the Iron Bowl. I guess actually it's 4 because Georgia, we don't really count it as a rivalry, but these two have such animosity for each other. Maybe we do. What's his record going to be? 2-2, 3-1, 4-0. And if he goes 4-0, holy crap, are we actually starting to consider Alabama as that team that just will not die? Like, you ever see that SEC video? What is it? The SEC shorts, and you have the Auburn fan going, "Why won't you die?" They're talking about Alabama. It's the exact same thing. Will you not die with a new man in command? Number 65. Did Ole Miss add enough on the defensive line to feel good about where they sit? Because that's the entire point. Last season, they lost 2 games. They would have been a playoff team if they would have beaten Georgia. They would have been a playoff team if they would have beaten Bama. If they beat Bama, the defensive line is good enough with Princely and Manley Ellen, with Walter Nolan, with potentially adding back in Tyler Barron. Do you feel like that's good? Like, what happens also if you don't? You're not going to go to the Atlanta. That's for damn sure. But do you think that you can still win a national title? Who's to say? Number 66. What would be the feel if Georgia goes 10-2? And also, who would be the 2 losses? If it's to Texas and it's to Alabama, maybe feel a little bit better. If it's to Texas and it's to Ole Miss, maybe feel a little better. If it's to Texas and it's to Clemson, do you feel good about yourself? Like, those 2 losses do carry a lot of weight. If it's a random Saturday like we used to see all the time, like a South Carolina or like a Kentucky, do you feel good about yourself? And also, do you feel like that's going to be good enough to help you win a national championship, something that a lot of those players came back for? Number 66, how good is Oklahoma's defense? Are they great or are they Big 12 great? Personally, I think it's the former. I think they're a great unit overall. They're going to come on in. They're going to command excellence. They're going to demand people to respect them. Headlined by Danny Stunsman and Billy Bowman. Love the addition of Dominic Williams. I think they're going to be a really solid team overall. A lot of people already are doubting me when it comes to this. They're going to go ahead and clip this video a million times over. Personally, I just think that they're a really good team, top to bottom. Number 67, Dan Key and Barry and Brown. They're the most slept-on wide receiver duo in college football. I personally think that they're up there because if you know that these are 2 guys that are going to get an upgrade at quarterback, they no longer have Travarius Robinson on the roster. We've seen what Barry and Brown can do as a legit number 1, and we've seen what Dane Key can do as a legit number 1. So now both of them just working together, is that going to be enough to say, yeah, we feel like that in Lexington, we got a tandem that can terrorize teams? Number 68. Wow, I'm getting tired. How many times do we hear about realignment from ACC schools? So you know that there's going to be rumors about NC State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech. Are we going to hear about that throughout the regular season? Like, are we going to hear at press conferences, Mac Brown be asked about this, Dave Durham be asked about this, Mario Cristobal be asked about this, Mike Norvell be asked about this? And are we going to hear SEC coaches respond with, do they like the idea of expansion? I think it's a big deal process. Number 69. Nice. What are real expectations for Clark Lee at Vanderbilt? Honestly, the team was riddled by the transfer portal. They feel like a roster that is more so a group of 5 team than they are actually an SEC program. Do you feel like they're going to be a tandem that maybe goes 2-10? And is 2-10 at this point good enough for Clark Lee if he's showing progress in the transfer portal? If he's showing progress when it comes to the recruiting trail? And also, or are they just going to go ahead and hold out hope that maybe 2025 is the better year? Number 70, does Greg Sankey bring up the Kansas rumor at SEC Media Days? Who started that? Why is that a thing? I get it. Basketball is starting to gain a lot of traction down in the SEC. No, No, I draw the line. I draw the line at Kansas, people. I get it. There's no more conference realignment where geographical standings matter. I draw the line at Kansas. I like Lance Leipold. I like the Jayhawks. I like the future of that team. Let them win in the Big 12, please. Don't make them go back to mediocrity in the SEC. Number 71, which OC ends up being the best? Bush Handman, Colin Klein, Seth Luttrell, Bobby Petrino. All newcomers to the SEC in terms of what their roles are. Personally, we all know Bobby is going to be a wizard when it comes to play calling. I also think that you got to give a good handout to Bush Handman. I do like what he has already done with quarterbacks in the past. And if he gets the best version of Brock Vandagriff, watch out in Lexington. Kroger Field is going to be hopping. Number 72, does Hugh Freeze offense cater more to Peyton Thorne? So Freeze is going to be calling the plays this year. Is that enough to feel confident that with this personnel, with the play calling, you have a quarterback that you trust is going to be the difference maker? You didn't want to spend $1 million. Okay, I get it. But now you got to be able to trust your scouting assessment and believe that you put him in the right situation to be successful. Will it pan out? We're going to find out probably within the first 4 weeks. 73, what is good enough to end the hate for Mike Bobo down in Athens? Honestly, you scored like 38 points per game last year. You have a Heisman favorite at quarterback. You have weapons. You have guys. You have a good offensive line. You made it all the way to an undefeated regular season. What more do you want from Mike Bobo? I don't get the hate. I understand if you were to go and finish with like 27 points per game, but you're going to have more options on the offense. You're going to be able to spread the rock around. What more do you want from the dude? Number 74. Does Cormani McClain number 74. Does Cormani McClain actually play meaningful reps at Florida? So technically the former number 1 overall cornerback is walking on to Gainesville. Will he see the field? And is he going to be different than what we heard about him during his time in Boulder? If Deion Sanders is talking about him showing up late to practice and not being attentive, is the rest of the SEC taking notice? And also, if they're taking notice, is that a concern? And will Cormani McClain actually be somebody worth talking about this time next year? Number 74. 75. If Kirby Moore does it again with Mizzou, like he averages 38 points per game, he leads them to an 11-2 finish, he gets them to a college football playoff spot, is he going to be in the running for a head coach? And how funny would that be that Kirby Moore, who really wasn't on any radar whatsoever, would be a head coach before Kellen Moore, who the last few seasons has been rumored at the NFL level to be a head coach in waiting. He was rumored in Dallas. He was rumored in Los Angeles. Now he's in Philadelphia. And we're like, hey, how's Thanksgiving going to be if one of you gets a promotion and you're still waiting for your spot? Number 76, is Shane Bieber's offseason hate at South Carolina warranted? Let's get this out of the way. When you win games, you feel really good about your coach. You can do really whatever you want. When you lose games and you do the corny stuff that Shane Beamer does, you're not really well perceived. I don't get the hate. I really don't. He overexceeded expectations in year 1. He overexceeded expectations in year 2. He took a step back because his offensive line was a freaking joke. He changed everything about the personnel. Can we let Shane Beamer breathe for 5 freaking seconds before we go run down his throat and say that he's a loser, a nitwit, and a moron? Number 77. Who is the one freshman that becomes a household name by the season's end? There's going to be somebody every single year that we're not talking about right now that eventually ends up panning out. I'm going to go Isaiah Williams down at Texas A&M. I know I've been picking Texas A&M a lot for some reason, mainly because that they have speed. Speed wins. You got speed, you're going to be able to terrorize teams throughout the SEC. And I think that when you look at what a guy like Isaiah Williams does, flipping his commitment from Florida to Texas A&M, there's a very good shot that means that he's going to see the field early and often. And if so, watch out for everybody else because that man can actually scoot, and boogie like Brooks and Dunn. I know I say that a lot. Number 78, Jamon Davis-Johnson, ready for another dominant season, but for Kentucky. Kentucky's been really weird about landing just superstars at linebacker. Jamin Davis, you talk about, sorry about that. God bless. I'm running out of steam on this one. Jamin Davis just won. You look at last season. They were really good. Is Jamon Davis-Johnson next? Former captain, former All-SEC talent. Can he be the dude that replaces Trevin Wallace and comes on in and immediately becomes an X factor? Number 79, is Surtain Perkins ready for a more substantial role at Ole Miss? They got Chris Paul coming on in from Arkansas, but you're looking at Surtain Perkins to be the dude moving forward. There is a very good shot that he is already one of the best linebackers that doesn't get talked about. 5.5 tackles for losses last year, 3 sacks. The ideal situation for him is to be able to finally be a full-fledged linebacker and not a defensive end. If you get that version of him, I think that you're going to get a really solid overall roster. More importantly, you don't really have that many more questions when it comes to your defensive front. Number 70, and my bad, number 80. Wow, we are at 80. Okay, I'm getting really tired. Who ends up being tight end number 1? Now with Brock Bowers gone, somebody's got to take on the mantle. I'm going to go with Holden Stays at Tennessee. Last season, he was a red zone target for Notre Dame. He comes on in. He gets to be that X factor for Nico Iamaleava. And if that's going to be the case, now you're bringing in like 4 different weapons that all can go ahead and fly across the football field. Neyland Stadium is not going to be short of talent on offense. Defensively, that's where we have the concern. Let's continue. 81. Will Tennessee fans turn on Nico if he goes 8-4? Dude has been hyped up to the same level as T. Martin, to the same level as Peyton Manning. If he goes 8-4 in year 1 and Tennessee ends up missing the college football playoff, are you going to blame him? You got to look at the stat line. If he throws for 38 touchdowns and 5 interceptions, but the defense ranks 123rd in coverage like they have for years on end, are you really going to blame him? You'd be out of your mind if you did. But I do wonder, what if he is a concern? What if those mental mistakes that really do pan out may end up being a problem down the line? Number 83, number 82. Whose seat becomes the hottest after the 2024 season? So this does not mean guys like Sam Pittman, Shane Beamer, Billy Napier. Who becomes hotter after them? Because we all know they're already on the hot seat. Is it potentially going to be Eli Drinkwitz? Could it be Lane Kiffin? Could it be Hugh Freeze? Could it be Steve Sarkisian? Somebody's going to get a hot seat. We know it's going to happen because if it always does happen. Could it be Brian Kelly if they were to go 9-3? Because everyone's talked about how at LSU, you win the national title first 4 years. Well, you're going into year 3. Could you be on the hot seat if you struggle going into the season? Number 83. What would be the weirdest but the most plausible SEC championship matchup? So be real for a second. They got to be teams that you actually believe based on FanDuel odds that could end up going to Atlanta. To me, it's easily going to be Missouri versus Ole Miss because we've never really seen those two become relevant at this stage. And if they are, good God. Like, good God. You know what, like we had a few years ago, last year, when we had Texas Rangers versus the Arizona Diamondbacks in the World Series, and it had like the lowest ratings because people weren't interested. Would that be the case for SEC fans? Like, you just don't care about Lane Kiffin versus Eli Drinkwitz, 2 people that you would probably want to punch in the face at a bar if you got the opportunity to. Number 84. How much better will Auburn's defense be with the additions of Jaron Thompson, Isaiah Rakes, and Trill Carter? So the defense last year was hit and miss. They had some highs, they had some lows. There were some good moments, there were some down moments. They bring in DJ Durkin, has SEC experience. They bring in Jaron Thompson. He was a 2-year starter at Texas. Bring in Trill Carter, was a really good Big Ten defensive lineman. They bring back Isaiah Rakes to the SEC. Hopefully you enjoyed USC. We know you didn't because Alex Grinch existed. Do you feel like this could be a defense that consistently is ranked inside the top 40? Like, not one week you're putting up 15, you're allowing 15 points, and the next week you're allowing 45. Those are things that I'm going to be paying attention to. Number 85. Can we please talk more about LSU's Xavier Thomas? I'm running out of speed on this video. You know who's not running out of speed? Xavier Thomas. He was damn good at Mississippi State. He returned 2 touchdowns on special teams. He's got speed like no one's business. He's a human track star. Imagine him with Kyron Lacey and CJ Daniels. This could be the most deadly offense in the SEC once again. You should not be shocked if Xavier Thomas is the name that we're talking about from LSU. Number 86. What defines a winning season for Florida? Honestly, what defines a winning season for Florida? Because I have no idea. You talking about record? Because if you're saying that with the conversation of pure hell that is 2024 schedule, 7 wins might be 10 wins for most teams. It may be 11 wins. 9-3, that's winning the national championship. You go 5-7 and you get an upset win over, say, like a Texas or over a Georgia or maybe over a Texas A&M, and you show growth, you show adaptability. That might be as poignant as a 9-3 season. It shows that Billy Napier is the guy. Number 87. My bad. Number Number 87. Yes. Who is the sleeper pick for SEC Player of the Year? To me, Brock Vandagriff. Look, guy's going to get an opportunity to start. I've mentioned this before. I believe in the multiverse where there is a scenario. Brock Vandagriff actually won the starting job over Carson Beck in 2023, and now Carson Beck is transferring. I do think that he's got a great arm. I think he's got great consistency. I think he is an ideal player to come on in and immediately become an X factor. Do not sleep in Lexington. I'm telling you, I am high on Kentucky. It is crazy to believe how high I am on Kentucky. 88. Is Tennessee's Mike Matthews truly unstoppable? Wide receiver Deontay Thompson earlier this offseason said that when you look at the way that Mike Matthews plays the game, you believe that he is going to be unstoppable. And if so, you pair him with Brew McCoy, you pair him with Squirrel White, you pair him with Chris Brazzell, and Nico Iamaleava, Holden Stales, the run game with Dylan Sampson. Yeah, there's reason for optimism when it comes to talking about a team like Tennessee potentially going to the college football playoff. Number 89, is Billy Napier done? So now there's a report coming out that Jaden Rashada is suing Billy Napier, suing Florida, suing the NIL collective for the $13 million that was promised to him that he never got. Is that enough to go ahead and say, yeah, we're just going to wash our hands clean? Thanks, big G5 Billy. You did your wonders. Didn't work out. You got to go ahead and now get to 9-3. What really goes into the defining winning season also goes into this kind of question as well. Number 90, Caden Proctor, breakout season in year 2. So Caden Proctor showed promise and potential down the stretch, looked awful in the Rose Bowl. We could all agree it was not a good game. Then leaves, then comes back, and now he's in campus. Now he is getting ready to go into year 2. Can he be the left tackle of the future that was expected, the former 5-star phenom from Iowa? And if so, is he going to be one of the All-Americans, one of the highlights, one of the key elements to Alabama still being Alabama? 91, can Cody Schrader's mantra be replaced? I think the production of Cody Schrader can be duplicated in Columbia. I've mentioned this before. I will die on this hill. I love Marcus Carroll. I think Marcus Carroll is one of the most underappreciated running backs in all of college football. The mantra that Cody Schrader brought inside that locker room, his ability to walk onto that campus and say to everybody, I'm good enough to play in the SEC. Can that be duplicated? Because if not, you're basically going upstream with styrofoam paddles. Number 92. Who is the one player to talk about with watching Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt's going to be awful. We can all agree. Vanderbilt's going to be a very, very downtrodden team. To me, I am paying attention to Alvin Williamson Jr., the 3-star cornerback out of Cibolo, which is right outside San Antonio. You know anything about Texas? They know how to play college football. They know how to get their players prepared for college football. If you know anything about Cibolo Steel, they're a really good program. They have developed countless names that have gone on to have rich, fulfilled seasons in the SEC. I do believe that you're going to see Alvin Williamson be right alongside that. Number 93. Did Texas do enough to replace their defensive line in the transfer portal? Bill Norton is a stud. He's an absolute stud. I love the new additions that they brought in with the Louisville kid. They also brought over another Arizona defensive lineman. I am running on fumes, so I can't look up his name immediately. But I do think that defense last year was the reason why Texas was good enough to win the Big 12. It's got to be the reason why they're going to be good enough to make it to the college football playoff in 2024. Number 94, how many SEC players go to New York City for the Heisman Trophy? Could we actually have an all-SEC Heisman Trophy presentation? Yeah, we could, because Ole Miss's Jackson Dart is going to be playing in multiple highlight games. Quinn Ewers is going to be playing in multiple highlight games. Carson Beck is going to be playing in multiple highlight games. Luther Burden, if there was one wide receiver I'd be betting on, he's going to play in highlight games. The same thing goes for Nico Iamaleava, for Garrett Nussmeier, for Jackson Arnold. There is a scenario where you have all 3 quarterbacks from the SEC that fight their way to the finish line to make it to Atlanta and be a college football playoff contender, actually show up and be a part of the CFP. It is possible. It's not likely, but it is possible. Number 95, who is the one coach to be talked about when a coach gets fired? What this means is, who is the one name that we're going to hear a lot about throughout the regular season that's going to eventually be brought into the SEC? I got 2 for you. First one, I believe you're going to hear a lot of Chris Klieman. Klieman is one of those guys that has proven himself at the FCS level. He's proven himself at Kansas State. If he is not entirely sold that Kansas State can be a program that will reach national championships and they don't have the money, what if a job gets open? What if South Carolina opens? What if Arkansas opens? And they open up the floodbanks and they say, hey, we need a culture builder. That's you. The other guy, John Summerall. I'm telling you, John Summerall was my pick to get the Mississippi State job. I am shocked that it came down to Jeff Lebby. I personally think that when you look at what John Summerall did during his time at Troy, it's unfathomable. It's a reason why Troy is completely fallen off the radar since losing Summerall. I think that if he goes and dominates at Tulane, he gets a win over Oklahoma, he's going to be on the front list for a lot of teams at the Power 4 level, including those in the SEC. Number 96, is it truly playoff or bust for Ole Miss? Yes, it is. I hate to break it to you. It's not even playoff or bust for Ole Miss at this point. The last dance mantra has carried over to where it's playoff wins or bust. And I'm not saying win, I'm saying wins. This is a team that should expect to hold their own, potentially host a playoff game, go to the next round, win there, get to the semifinals, maybe get to the national championship. They're good enough. There's no flaws with this team. It literally is the Monstars version of the SEC roster. If they can do what we think that they can, playoff or bust is not the conversation. It's semifinals or bust. It's national championship or bust. You don't carry that way when it comes, you don't care about that when it comes to Oregon. You don't care about that when it comes to Texas. You don't care about that when it comes to Ohio State. You don't care about that when it comes to Georgia. Why would you not care when it's brought up to a team like Ole Miss as well? Number 97, which preseason top 25 team goes unranked by the season's end? The easy answer to me is probably Oklahoma. The more difficult answer, which I could actually see happening, is Tennessee. Tennessee, you do wonder about this offense. What's it going to look like? You'll wonder about the secondary. Is it going to be improved? And if it's not, do you feel like 8-4 is good enough to keep you in the top 25? More than likely, yes, but I would say if you do go 7-5, you're probably going to be sitting at number 28, maybe number 29. Number 97, I bet. Number 98. God, I'm running out of steam. If I can bring back Vanderbilt, will I be able to turn them into a powerhouse in EA college football with Blue Mountain State's Marty Daniels? Yes, I am making Marty Daniels come back to reality. I am going to take him. I am going to put him in the game. I am going to make sure that he wins multiple national championships. He did it at Blue Mountain State. Why can't he do it in the SEC? He was the all-time winningest coach for the program. He was right alongside Nick Saban. Eventually, he's going to win at Vanderbilt, and he's going to get the job at Alabama. Sorry, hate to do that to you. Hate to do that to you, Kalen DeBoer. I really, really do. Number 99, will we get an all-SEC national title game? Hasn't happened since 2021. Only happened twice in the last, 20 years with LSU in 2011 against Alabama. It's possible. It is. There's a scenario where you do have Texas play Georgia, where you have Georgia play Ole Miss, where you have Texas play Ole Miss, where you have Alabama sneaking their way in, Missouri, maybe, Tennessee, maybe, LSU, maybe. There is a scenario where Ohio State is getting way too big for its britches. There's a scenario where Oregon is not good enough to hold their own. And there is a slight ploy that maybe when we're talking about the other teams from the ACC, like Clemson, Florida State, maybe throwing Miami, they're good, but they're nowhere near SEC level. I will not be shocked to see an all-SEC national championship. And it come back to the South where it actually belongs. And number 100, oh my God, I'm so glad I'm done, is Texas back. If Texas does this year, if they did what they did last season, they show that they are actually improving, not just with transfers, not just with personnel, not just with coaching staff changes, not just with recruiting. If they own the SEC, pull up the chair year one and show everybody we belong, Texas is back. But until that moment comes, I'm not going to say it. I've already said it twice. If I say it a third time, it's like Pandora's box and Beetlejuice comes out. Let me know in the comments section down below, what did you think of this video? Also, let me know your thoughts. What was one comment that I did not get to in this hour-long process? Tell your friends, family, mortal enemies, best of bros, college football fans across the universe about SEC Unfiltered. Make sure that also you are subscribed to us on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and make sure to keep up with the #1 content found surrounding your favorite team. Please visit SECUnfiltered.com. You're probably tired of hearing my voice, but I am Cole Thompson. I gave you 100 thoughts. So until next time, folks, please hit subscribe, and later.